welcome everybody to the September meeting of the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Commission. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. As always, we'll start with the prayer and pledge of allegiance. Eddie Miller has agreed to lead us. Eddie?
All right. Please bow your head and pray. Lord, we thank you for all our many blessings. We pray for you to help us to use our blessings to help those who are less fortunate. Help this group make good decisions today for our community. And in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Eddie. Everybody should have received their packet in the last few days. Contained in that packet was the minutes from our July meeting. This time we'll entertain a motion for approval or any changes that need to occur to the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Right. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Thank you, Mitzi. We've got a busy agenda, so we'll get right into it today. First, Angela is going to tell us a little about some of the recent reorganization related to the department. Angela?
Great, thank you. As part of the city's restructure, the Community Services Division includes Parks and Recreation, Senior Center, Golf, and outside agencies. I will be am the Executive Director of Community Services, and Nate Williams is now the Parks and Recreation Director.
All right, congratulations to both of you guys.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions, Angela, of the reorganization? I know it was communicated with everyone. Congrats to you both.
Thank you.
Item 2 is consideration of fees and changes, and Nate's going to go over those with us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're glad to bring this to you. This is a lot of work that's gone into this from our staff, and have spent a couple months really evaluating where we stand on some of our fees and charges. Leading into the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget, we were challenged by council to look at some of our costs and fees and figure out where we might be able to better cover those costs. Additionally, the council expressed a sincere interest in providing city resident discounts when we can, when applicable. So attached is a spreadsheet of fee adjustments for your consideration. We determined these fees based on market studies, considering direct costs to deliver program services and facilities, and then also staff recommendations. It is a big list. You'll recall that our first iteration of this came with facility passes last year, when we were able to set new rates but also provide a resident discount, and that has gone overwhelmingly successful. I know our residents appreciate that discount, and like I said, that's been successful because of our staff's good implementation and application of that process. We're still working to determine a few new fees in other areas such as athletics, cultural arts, theater fees, those types of things. This is just really the first hit of it and should be the biggest. The other ones might not have city resident discounts, but we're still doing more study on this. But this is the first hit. It includes camps, pavilions, facility rentals, that type of thing. So if you approve this proposal, these fees will go into effect on December 1st, 2018. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have specific to any of the fees, or however you'd like to have me answer questions, or I'm here for that.
Okay, thanks, Nate. And Nate discussed, we've gone over this with some of the other fees. This is just the next step. Are there any questions regarding the implementation of these fees? If there are none, we need a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Eddie.
Second.
Thanks, Charles. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thanks, Nate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate y'all's work on that. It's back to you for consideration of refunds and refundable deposits policy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have both of these listed under one item. I'm going to go over both of them if that's okay with you, and then
Sure.
we can break them up if you have independent questions. These are honestly just practical matters for us, and very reasonable requests, we believe. The first is our refund policy. Our current refund criteria vary really greatly across the board. We do different things at different facilities. Our goal is to streamline the refund process and provide the availability and maximize use. We believe that this policy specific to refunds accomplishes that goal. So what you have in front of you, the policy that we're asking for, is that we give full refunds when canceling at least 2 weeks prior to an event, activity, facility rental or program, a 50% refund when canceling less than 2 weeks prior to the activity, event, facility rental, or program, and then a prorated refund for passes to Sportscom and Patterson. We do realize that there might be some outlying circumstances that we could approve at a director level, but this needs to be just our baseline. We often find ourselves under the old policy, losing a rental, keeping a very small portion of that and not being able to give that pavilion or whatever camp space to the public because we don't have enough time. So if this proposal is approved, this refund policy also will go into effect on December 1st, 2018. That's so we can get it in our rec connection and people can be aware of that. So if you have any questions about that, I'd be glad to answer. I can move on to our refundable cleaning deposit.
Can you clarify what prior to activity? Is that prior to the day of activity, or is that?
Yes, prior to the day of the activity.
So the day of, let's say they cancel 1 hour before the event.
Right.
No refund at that point?
So if they get a 50% refund when canceling less than 2 weeks prior to the activity. So the day of, if they show up at the activity, then they would not get a refund on the day of, but 2 weeks before that, they would get that 50%. Within 2 weeks before that, they'd get 50%.
I just want to make sure it's clarified that if they just don't show, that's the same as canceling at the last minute.
Correct.
And they should not expect a refund. I think there needs to be something that states when they won't receive a refund.
We'll specify that as far as when we would not give any type of refund.
Any other questions before Nate moves on to the next one? Okay, Nate, go ahead.
Okay. The next one I want to talk about is our refundable cleaning deposits. For several years, we've issued refundable deposits for rental facilities at Patterson, McFadden, Gateway Island, and Bradley Academy. This process takes a lot of time and requires multiple levels of approval at our office and then at City Hall, which really honestly leads to thousands of dollars worth of operating costs to implement these refundable deposits. We rarely keep the deposits. I'm going to give you an example. Last year we took 380 deposits just at Patterson Park. Of those, only 8 were not fully refunded, so we only retained $264.46. The cost to do that was in the thousands if you count staff time to do that. So if the facility is not left in a satisfactory condition or the rental exceeds the allotted time, our department will end up just billing the rental for that. If they fail to pay the bill, it'll be tickled in our system where they wouldn't be able to rent any further. So we've had good luck with renting in the past. We have good renters, and I think this is something that we need to do just to clear up some time, and I think it'll save us some money in the process.
All right, thanks, Nate.
I'd be glad to answer any questions about either one of these. If not, we ask for approval.
Any questions of Nate regarding either one of these?
Nate, will you guys, in the agreements that you do with renters, will there be something spelled out just basically saying we're going to invoice you, we're going to bill you if it's not left in? Is there any change that needs to be made to that?
It'll be specific to the facility and then the area that they're renting. For example, if they're meeting the rental, the meeting room at Patterson Park or the theater or something like that, we'll put that at the end where they sign off on.
Perfect.
Will you be billing them specific cleaning fees based on the damage or what they've left?
Based on the damage or direct costs to keep the facility open or keep a staff member there until they've left.
Any other questions or comments?
If there aren't any, I'll move for approval on both items. Can we do that,
Yep.
Kelly? Yep.
Second.
There's a second. Thank you, Gloria. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thomas is going to join us for consideration of player fees. Thomas, welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. As you're aware, I'm sure through the budget that the city spends a substantial amount of money maintaining and preparing athletic fields on a regular basis. There's about 38 athletic fields, both soccer and softball, baseball fields, that are utilized through local leagues that we sign partnership agreements with. To help offset some of those direct costs, we're proposing a $10 per player fee per season that would go into effect January 1st. This is estimated to cover about 10 to 15% of the overall cost of maintaining and preparing fields. There's 6 partner organizations that this would affect. Everyone else that's not in those 6 partner organizations would follow our general rental policy, which is $20 per hour, $50 per game or match, or $75 for a doubleheader, and then $150 all day. Of course, City of Murfreesboro Parks Recreation programs and city school programs would be exempt from these fees. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Thomas?
Well, can you give an estimate as to how much revenue will be raised?
It varies, and this is going on the local league's numbers, in which those may change now that these are applied. But we estimate yearly would be around $70,000 to $80,000 would be the total money brought in, and that's pretty close to the direct costs associated with maintaining fields. That's buying paint, of daily preparation for game fields, paint, mound clay, conditioner, things like that that we do to have games every week.
The goal of this was to cover the direct costs for the leagues using the fields, what it takes just to get those fields ready for their practices, not cover the cost for maintaining across the course of the year.
This has been communicated with all the leagues, correct?
We've been in the process. Thomas and his staff have been communicating. I think most everybody has been.
We have. This would affect the Murfreesboro Baseball Association, Murfreesboro Little League, the Stones River Kiwanis Softball, the Murfreesboro Soccer Club, the Murfreesboro Football Club, the Murfreesboro Lacrosse. All of those leagues have been notified and are aware of this. They've been notified at least 2 to 3 weeks prior to us bringing this here.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Now we need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Thank you, Rick. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Rick. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. Stay up. Consideration of a use agreement with the Tennessee State Soccer Association.
As you may not know, we've had a long relationship with the Tennessee State Soccer Association in the use of Richard Siegel Park. We've hosted the State Cup soccer tournaments for many years. Most of them have been on a year-to-year agreement, and to help in their creating of sponsorships and working with local hotels and CVB, it's much more beneficial for them to have a long-term agreement. So this is a 3-year agreement for the Tennessee State Soccer Association State Cup for girls, which is held in the spring, and the boys tournament, which is held in the fall. This would cover this fall's boys tournament and then take it through 2020. So if there's any questions, like I said, we've hosted this event several times in the past, and this is something we definitely want to hang on to. The CVB is committed to helping them find hotel rooms, and it's a really good partnership.
Great. Any questions for Thomas regarding the agreement?
And this is something that they want to have?
Oh, absolutely. This was upon their request. Typically, we don't present a long-term agreement unless the end users request it. And this is something they have requested. This will be the second time we've entered into a 3-year agreement with them.
Were they part of last week's tournament here in town?
They were.
Did that go well?
It went really well. We were competing. There were 3 tournaments last weekend. The former Tennessee Cup, the director, he took his tournament to Decatur, Alabama. I understand they had about 60 teams. And then Gatlinburg, their facility, they hosted a tournament. They had close to 50, and I think Brian said we had 119 teams here, so we did much better than the surrounding areas.
Any other questions or comments? Tim, you got one?
No, I move to approve.
Motion for approval. Thanks.
Second?
Second. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Thank you,
you.
Thomas. Good work. Bart, welcome. Bart Fight's here to give us an update on SportsCom and summer recap.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, what I want to do today is give you a brief summary of our summer season, we call it, that just ended this past Monday with the closing after swimming at Burrow Beach. But anyway, over the summer, we hosted 14 youth camps over 8 weeks, serving over 500 kids, and all camps were at a capacity, and most of them even had a waiting list. We offered 6 sports camps, which Thomas Laird and his staff did a tremendous job with over 60 kids per week coming into SportsCom. We had 2 babysitting camps, 2 junior lifeguarding camps, 1 volleyball camp, 1 cheer camp, and we also hosted 2 RAD camps that, along with Murfreesboro Police Department, which we're glad to cooperate with them and being able to host these fine camps that they do. We also had 6 special events over the summer that draw thousands of participants. We had the Memorial Day Madness at Burrow Beach to open the season. We had the Celebration Under the Stars with our annual fireworks show, along with our July 4th Rock the Pool party at Burrow Beach. We also had a flick and float, which means you could bring your float to the pool, get in the pool with your float, and watch a movie up on the deck. We also had National Night Out, which we hosted in August, which is a night against crime, working with the Murfreesboro Police Department. We also had a Labor Day pool party that just ended this past Monday with, we had a record revenue day of over $7,000 that day. And we also rented Burrow Beach on every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night throughout the summer, along with our indoor pool rentals, which are held on Saturday and Sunday nights. In addition to all these summer programs, we continue with our regular ongoing fitness programs that included 28 fitness classes, 21 weekly water exercise classes. We had a pickleball day Tuesday and Thursdays throughout the summer. We had a senior art class. We also had a water polo league. We also had morning basketball, open basketball, of course, the open pool, weight room and track were open to the public, and our evening athletic programs. And we also had the adult basketball league, adult volleyball league, and also a youth volleyball league for girls that we hosted in the summer. And along with this, we had 2 separate early voting sessions, which if you were around for those early voting periods, it was packed everywhere out there at SportsCom. They were all over the place. So this summer we were very busy, and on the back page there that I just got out as we ended our summer season this past Labor Day was our revenue from Burrow Beach for our outdoor pool, our outdoor concessions, and also our indoor facility. And if you can see, the total from 2017 to 2018 is really over a $50,000 increase, which we were very excited about. And like I said, we had huge crowds throughout the summer. A couple of things really helped our revenue there was taking credit cards, which with your approval was a big boost to our revenues, and also our shade structure, which we put up. We had some trouble before that was up with people staying out in the hot sun, and some of them, a couple just fell out, but we had with that helps a whole lot at the pool. So and we also ran a cash line, which every day we would get, if there was a long line, we'd get out there. If they had cash, we could get them in faster, and that helped tremendously also get the crowds in. But as you can see, it was a very busy summer, and now we're looking forward to a busy fall.
It's good info, Bart. Anybody have any questions for Bart regarding stuff out of
I have
SportsCom?
one question. On total visits, is that total paying visitors to these?
Well, they could have a pass, a 30-day pass, a year pass, but that's when they swipe in with their card. Some of them do pay cash, and that does not go to the total visit, but when you swipe your card, that'll go toward that. We had a lot pay cash, so, but we do offer, other areas where they can get in at a very cheaper price with the 30 visit or the monthly or yearly, and also our special, which we offer in December, the 2-for-1.
Any more questions for Bart? Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, Angela is going to give us a Blackman Park update.
Great. As you know, earlier this month, the Murfreesboro City Council asked us to examine options for the Blackman Park project. We're considering potentially transferring the park plan from the 840 Veteran Site to city-owned property on Franklin Road. I wanted to share the information with this group that was discussed at that council workshop. In July of 2016, the city purchased 119 acres of land near 840 and Veterans Parkway, and this is the site that we've been working together with this group to develop the Blackman Park master plan and the designs, and we have discussed also with this group a lot of the challenges of that site. Because of the property's interstate frontage and location at a major intersection, placing the property into parkland may not represent the property's highest and best use. Additionally, this location is close to the city's urban growth boundary, limiting its convenience for current and future city residents. In January of 2017, the city purchased 154 acres of land fronting Franklin Road on Highway 96, approximately 1.25 miles east of Veterans Parkway. There were no current plans for the city to use this property. This property is close to existing city limits and well within the city's western urban growth boundaries. Relocating the park project from the 840 Veterans Parkway site to the Franklin Road site may allow the 840 frontage to be used for commercial development that will assist with the funding of future park development. It could also allow a substantial portion of the 840 Veterans Parkway site, approximately 65 acres, to be used for additional recreational development. This could potentially include a partnership with the Tennessee State Soccer Association. So in cooperation with the city's New Development Services Division and the Kimley Horn team, we've begun studying those options. Everything is very preliminary now, and we will bring more information and proposals to you as they are developed. It remains our priority to serve the citizens of Murfreesboro with accessible parks. No action is needed from the Park Commission at this time, but we will continue to update and work with this group throughout that process.
Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Angela regarding this? So there's a lot more work to be done.
A lot, yes, sir.
Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Kevin Gunther's here with us today from Reagan Smith to give us an update on the master plan. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Jernigan, and also want to congratulate Ms. Jackson and Mr. Williams on their new positions. I'm looking forward to the continued service and good opportunities they will bring in those positions. So we had, I think, discussed back in August briefly the review process and kind of the guiding principles that we were using for the master plan. And then in July, since we've last met and discussed this with you, we did have a public input session that was very productive. And so now I think I'd like to update you, and I'll keep it brief and really kind of give you a summary of what we think has kind of risen to the top when it comes to the prime opportunities and benefits and the major constraints and needs that we've seen. So if we could pull the exhibit up on the screen, thank you. This is the same thing that I've given you a hard copy of. So these 6 big opportunities and these 6 big constraints are based on 3 main things. They're based on stakeholder interviews. That includes not only park and recreation staff, and it includes stakeholders in the community leaders. It includes partners that have been working with the Park and Recreation Department. We also have included in the summary kind of the feedback we got at that public visioning session that we had back in July. We feel like that was a very productive session. And then also we have an online public survey that we have been conducting with the public. And I want to take a moment to plug that if I could. If you go to the Murfreesboro Park and Recreation homepage on the city website, right there is in a large rectangle that says "Take Our Survey." And I would like to continue to encourage all of you and all the constituents that you know to go ahead and take that survey online. That will continue to benefit us with good feedback. So based on those 3 primary things of input, I'm going to touch on the big opportunities and big constraints. So number 1 on opportunities, the Greenway. hands down as far as both positive feedback of what's existing and encouragement as to what residents and community leaders would like to see expand. The Greenway came with very, very high marks. It's very popular, and I think that's a good thing because it also achieves some of the other goals that I think we're going to talk about here. And, of course, that has a great opportunity not only for recreation but for health and improving the community's health and the social connections. Number 2 is sports venues. We have very high quality and we draw major tournaments, and we've had some of that discussion just today about the importance of things like the soccer tournaments that are held here in the city, the value that brings. I'll include in that as well as the Richard Siegel Complex, the Adams Tennis Complex, the McKnight Miracle Field Complex were all things that were highlighted as excellent sport venues and very large opportunities for the city. Third is heritage and cultural assets. This has come out very strong as well. There's a lot of assets here, not only in our parks and recreation system, but in the surrounding community. When you include things like not only Cannonsburg and Oaklands and Discovery Center, the Bradley Academy Museum, but even the square and all the events that are going on here downtown, it was really highlighted in our feedback that those are important things that we need to connect to and continue to enhance. Also, the programs that we have in the city that are offered are very high diversity and well run. And hats off to the staff. I think you got a little bit of taste of that here again today with feedback on SportsCom and Blackman Park and some of the excellent things that are happening there. Number 5 is partners and volunteers. These are important players in meeting the needs of our city park and recreation. So it's not just the staff that we see as a real strength. There is a strong element of existing volunteers and existing partners that we want to continue to tap onto. And the third is this idea of outdoor adventure. And this is both a local trend, but I will also say that as we've started research outside of the immediate city boundaries, we've seen this as a regional trend. We think it's something important to tap into and make sure that we continue to emphasize. And when I'm saying outdoor experience, that can be anything from your hiking and biking and climbing and paddling, adventure camping, all those things. And really anything, even outdoor fitness, anything that gets people experiencing the outdoors and at the same time experiencing the recreation component of that. So I wanted to stop there with those, what I've highlighted as opportunities and benefits. Here's some feedback from you. Then I'll go over the constraints and the needs. So of those 6 items that have kind of risen to the top, the things that we've heard the loudest, is there any thoughts from all of you? Is there anything that you think we've missed that we need to enhance more? I'd love to hear from you.
Comments? Cover the constraints and then we'll...
Okay, yes, sir. So going to constraints and needs, one of the primary needs I think we have seen as a community is the need to better connect our park and recreation facilities. What we have is good. We know we need to expand it, but in the survey that we took, it was interesting. I believe 85% of the people that said they go to use a recreation facility go there by car, an automobile. So I think that's an area that we see a real need. We need to better connect people both from pedestrian and bicycle and transit options, but also make sure that our park system is accessible and walkable from neighborhoods and that there's enough locally so that neighborhoods can experience recreation. We did a very thorough survey of existing facilities, and as much as I've said that there's a high quality to a lot of our facilities, there's also the signs of the wear and the tear and the popularity of our facilities and how that has started to play out. And I think one of the main things we need to look at going forward is to make sure that we consider not only what needs to expand and what we need to add to meet the park and recreation needs of our existing residents and our future population, but we need to look really hard at making sure we've got the pieces in place to maintain and upgrade facilities going forward. Local neighborhood and community facilities, as I mentioned, there are some gaps, especially if you look at the west and the southwest side of Murfreesboro or some of the growing areas in our urban growth boundary. There are what we call service gaps, and that means that if you are going to use facilities, it's harder to get across town to use something as opposed to something that's close to you. We also heard this anecdotally from people saying, I would love to be able to have maybe a park that's a little more local to me, something that I can walk to, something that's maybe not a large scale, but something that I can experience on that local level. We also heard some discussions about, as great as the leagues are and as great as the large athletic events that come to town, there's a need to make sure that the smaller local athletic leagues and the events going on, even for just pickup, baseball pickup, unorganized play, there needs to be places for that as well. So we heard that. Number 4, stronger communication. As great as our partnerships are, there's a definite need to continue to look for ways to leverage those partnerships and communicate with those partners. Number 5, I think you've tapped into some of that today in your discussions, the need for increased revenue and investment. And we need to look for ways that are creative. There are going to need to be more than one source of revenue to meet the demands that we see coming. And there's going to need to be a prioritization on where to invest that revenue. And then the last item on constraints or needs, promoting parks and recreation. We're kind of seen as a sports athletic capital, if you will, in some ways. But we do, I know when we researched this, we found that there's ways I think we could strengthen, say, with the county, with Chamber of Commerce, with other organizations. There's ways we can strengthen and promote parks and recreation that tie more into our overall economy and see parks and recreation as a really important economic lever moving forward that is not only going to pay for some of its own needs, but I think bring in revenue and recognition of the city as a regional destination. So that's kind of a summary of all 12 of those that we've seen rise to the surface. And I'm going to add at the end of this meeting, Angela and Nate have told me it's okay to have fun sometimes in these meetings because this is park and recreation, right? So before you leave today, I've got a board of these same big opportunities and same constraints behind me here. I'm going to give you some stickers. This is an exercise we use at some of our public input sessions, and I want you to place 3 stickers on opportunities and 3 stickers on constraints. And I'll tell you which colors are the priority number 1 and priority number 3 when we're back here. But if you would, before you go today, place your stickers on there. And I would encourage you to kind of go with your gut. This is one of those exercises where you can ponder it and think a long time, but usually those things that kind of come to your mind and your heart first are telling you that, hey, this is really important. So I think we can have some fun after the meeting and put those stickers on the board. Any further comments, Nate?
I just wanted to ask, if there's something you think we're always looking for ways to genuinely get better, and I think you guys are so in tune with what's going on, especially the constraints. Is there anything that you see from that list that we're missing that we need to address?
I think it's important. First of all, I think you've hit a lot of them. It was interesting to go to those meetings and sit down with people at different tables and do kind of that same exercise with our little stickers. And some of the things that came up are some that you have highlighted. I think the connections are so valuable. I mean, here we have an amazing greenway system, and then we have to drive our bike to the facility for us to get a safe ride in with our kids, and that's a hindrance. I always try to find ways to get to the greenway, and a lot of them are not as safe as they can be or will be in the future. We've added a lot of bike lanes, but then there isn't one. So you can't, it's great to have a bike lane, but if doesn't make that connection to the next facility because there's one, could be a bridge that isn't wide enough. We have that by the Thompson Lane Greenway. When you take a right out of there onto Thompson Lane, it's a beautiful bike lane, and then it just goes away for 40 to 50 feet. What do you do for those 40 to 50 feet? I mean, because you can't just stop riding your bike. You end up going into traffic in a very congested area. So those connections are extremely valuable because it does stop us from using what to me is the gem of Murfreesboro. There's a lot of amazing things, but I love the Greenway, and that's one of the hindrances. You have to drive to it to really use it.
I'll mention something about that too, and it seems to me that, and maybe you can help, but this is something that Nate and Angela, there needs to be a little bit of coordination with the development services or the planning department. When we're putting together 150 or 250 home developments, if you don't have, I don't know if it's an easement, I don't know what other people do, but I mean, there's not going to be a connection to the Greenway unless somebody makes there be a connection to the Greenway on the front end, you know what I mean, or a connection out to a bike lane or something like that. So I don't, it might take some coordination with you guys, but Kevin, you might have some ideas on that you've seen in other places or whatever, but it seems like we need to be addressing that on the front end during development, particularly where we're talking about in these areas for new park development.
Our next phase of this process is going to be working with our executive directors and then other department heads to communicate and get their insight along with city administration. So I think that's a good conversation we can have in the next step.
Go ahead, Eddie.
I guess as a planning commissioner, I ought to comment on this because I think you've stepped on my toes.
No, I didn't. That's why I smiled at you.
But no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
With it. I don't know how it is.
I appreciate you bringing up the topic, and certainly from a road perspective, Thompson Lane's a good example where we've got a state road that is currently proposed to be a 4-lane roadway with a sidewalk on one side and a multi-use path on the other side, and we've absolutely planned ahead, and all those things are in place. The only thing lacking now is funding from the state to build it. And those things are being addressed. We are looking at them from a planning commission standpoint. I think Mitchell Nelson Jones Boulevard is a good example of a roadway that probably within the next year will go from a substandard road to a road that will have sidewalks on both sides of it, going all the way from the Boys and Girls Club to Northfield. And so I'll assure you there is not a single road project that comes before Murfreesboro right now where there's either a neighborhood development or a road project itself that at least one person don't say, where's our multi-use path and where's our sidewalks?
Yeah,
so
just for clarification, I was talking about like the west area out there specifically to that particular park as well.
And you'll notice in our newer neighborhoods, the infrastructure is much different today than it was that was planned 50 years ago. If you look at Reese Rogers neighborhood or Bellwood and Mitchell Nelson, completely different neighborhoods than what you see where the neighborhoods are currently being built and they're all required to have sidewalks and underground utilities and such as that. So certainly the focus has changed, and I think we're doing a better job. I'm not going to say we're doing a perfect job, but we're doing better. Yeah,
one of the things I was kind of thinking of is a couple of developments that we've annexed recently. At the time that we annex it, and this is a city council thing, not a planning commission thing, but it's part of the planning process. Is the development will have some sort of a walking trail kind of around the perimeter of the property, typically. Which is a great amenity for that particular development. You just wonder if you've got an urban growth boundary where you're going to have multiple developments in these different areas, if you don't say on the planning process, well, instead of you having a walking trail here and you having one here and you having one here, that you have one that goes through here and it connects with this one, which connects to this one, which gets you to the Greenway. And so that's kind of what I had in my mind when I was thinking about it, when I was saying that. It's just some sort of coordination like that, as opposed to each development individually. And so that's just as much city council or pre-city council or needing people like Kevin help us come up with ideas. I certainly don't know them, but I mean,
And
you know what I have in my mind.
you're exactly right. I mean, even with neighborhoods that we currently have under construction, say across the street from Siegel Park, there's a neighborhood being built there, and that neighborhood actually has a greenway system designed going through that greenway. And if you'll look at the way it's laid out, it is pointed one direction towards Siegel Park and the other direction towards the Walter Hill Greenway system. So, you know, as it continues to develop outward towards that greenway system, that same expectation would be placed on whoever the developers are. So, certainly, you know,
Yeah.
we're looking at it, and the greenway system is growing by leaps and bounds, and we've seen a significant increase in the amount of greenway system in the recent past, and I think we'll continue to see a focus on making sure that we'll continue to try and make, I mean, multi-use path wasn't even a term that we used until the last few years, and now it's gotten to be a common term because, you know, quite honestly, I saw them doing it in Franklin, and I'm kind of like, you know, I don't have Franklin envy, but I certainly believe that if they're doing something right, we ought to follow their suit. And so, so I think we can learn from places that we visit and see infrastructure that's working for them as far as pedestrian movement, and certainly from a Parks and Recreation standpoint, we need to continue to make sure that our facilities are accessible as we possibly can make them, and the more pedestrian friendly that is, the better off our park will be.
I think there's two things I'd like to add and offer as encouragement. One is, as we mentioned, with the transportation system and the citywide transportation that Mr. Smotherman had alluded to, we've really started to look at these connections. But in addition to that, Mr. Williams had mentioned meeting with the city staff and meeting with the planning department, meeting with the transportation department. That's really our next step. We've got these opportunities and constraints that have risen to the surface. Now, I think we want to pause and reflect those back to the citywide departments, make sure we're including those larger considerations of development, as Mr. LaLance had mentioned, and transportation, as Mr. Smotherman had mentioned. Make sure those are part of what we're looking at for our solution for Parks and Recreation, because it's really all connected. So I think that's encouraging. And the other thing is, I know that with the new design guidelines that have been adopted, there are some considerations, I think, that are in place to allow for formal open space and parks, to be considered as part of a design discussion when projects are being reviewed and implemented. So I think that's another encouragement as a city. We can start to use that, as a tool.
It's good stuff. Any other questions or comments?
Just last little bit, a separate issue. You have it as kind of a constraint, but I look at it as a major opportunity, is partnerships. I know you mentioned like the TSSA opportunity, where we can look at partnerships that really benefit our community, not just to make a dollar here or there. And I'm not saying that's what we're doing. I've noticed a lot of wonderful partnerships with a lot of the entities here in town already, whether it be Murfreesboro Soccer Club and how the city works well with them. I just look at that as a major opportunity. Partnerships, in my space in the education, we're doing more and more partnerships, and it seems like more private industry likes to do that, or more government agencies like us to be doing more partnership type stuff. I don't know if that you see that as an opportunity as well for a lot of stuff. So we don't always have to go alone when we do these ventures. There are people in the community and around us that want to also pitch in, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think we've recognized in the study that partnerships are going to be critical to achieving the goals. As we grow, the city itself can no longer be seen as the only entity that's trying to leverage and provide for these needs. And it's not like it's been that way, that we have had good partners, but we definitely need to leverage that even more as we move forward. So that's a very good point.
Kevin, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And, everybody, don't forget to do that on the board after the meeting. I think that's important stuff.
And stickers may end up in other places in the boards. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. As always, last but not least, Becky Johnson is going to give us an update on the activities and programs.
Well, good afternoon. It's just going to take me a minute here to... All right. I'm going to forget my PowerPoint. The next few programs we have coming up for the month of September, we have the Greenway Art Festival, which is Saturday, September 15th. It will be at Old Fort Park from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It is free parking and free to attend. However, we have artist booths and music and food vendors, so there is purchases that can be made, but it is free to come and just enjoy the festival. Once again, that's Saturday, September 15th, 10 to 4 at Old Fort Park. And then on Saturday, September 15th as well, we have our Cardboard Boat Regatta. This has become quite popular the last few years. We have teams of 1 to 4 that build their cardboard box boats, and then they put them in the water at Burrow Beach and try to see who can race across the pool and get to the other side fastest, or actually get to the other side. Some of them sink faster than others. But it's a lot of fun to watch. So that is Saturday, September 15th. It starts at 10 a.m. at the Burrow Beach pool. And then the final event for Burrow Beach for the year is our Puppy Plunge, which is Saturday, September 22nd. It's from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it is $1 per dog. So if you have 10 dogs, you can bring them all. And that is, if you have never seen the Puppy Plunge, you really need to come out, whether you bring a furred friend or not. These dogs have so much fun. It's really great to just see them having a good time. Some of the dogs that just keep fetching, the ones that dive off the diving boards. It really is their social event of the year. So that is Saturday, September 22nd from 10 a.m. to 1. And then we also have our third Friday night concert series. It is the last one for this year. Is Friday, September 21st. The band will be Rockvale Blues, and it is from 7 to 9 at Cannonsburg Village, and it is free, and it's Friday, September 21st. And for more information on all of our other events and programs, you can go to our website and download our Rec Connection or follow one of our Facebook pages.
All right.
Any questions?
A lot of stuff as always, Becky. You might have any questions for Becky about any of the programs?
All right.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Is there any other business to come before the commission? There is none. We can vote in the back, and we stand adjourned.